The party was filled with laughter, music, and the clinking of crystal glasses. Expensive chandeliers hung from the high ceiling of the billionaire's mansion, and guests from every corner of high society gathered to celebrate the 12th birthday of Amelia Ward, daughter of tech magnate Richard Ward. But while others saw the glittering perfection of the evening, Amelia sat quietly in her corner, her eyes watching but her ears silent to the world around her. She had been deaf since birth. No laughter, no music, no words of love from her father or late mother had ever reached her. Richard, for all his wealth and power, had one unshakable wound: his little girl's silence. He had poured millions into treatments, flown Amelia to the world's best specialists, tried every experimental procedure. Doctors shook their heads, some with pity, others with greed, but the answer was always the same: Amelia would never hear. That evening, while everyone celebrated, Richard noticed the shadow in his daughter's eyes. She clutched her stuffed bunny and gazed at the pianist's moving fingers, watching the world experience something she could not. Richard's heart cracked all over again. Unbeknownst to the guests, one boy was working quietly in the background. His name was Elijah. 14 years old, tall for his age, with kind eyes and skin as dark as polished mahogany, he was part of the service crew hired to clean up after the wealthy. He lived with his grandmother in a rundown neighborhood on the other side of town. Despite hardship, Elijah carried an unusual gift. His grandmother often whispered that his hands carried healing, a touch that soothed pain in ways science could not explain. He never believed it, until life forced him to. As the night drew on, Amelia slipped away from the crowd and wandered into the mansion's garden, where fountains glistened under moonlight. She sat on a marble bench, staring at the stars, silently pleading with God for something she had never dared ask before. "Let me hear just once. Just once, let me know what a voice sounds like." That was when Elijah, carrying a bag of trash to the bins, noticed her. At first, he froze. He wasn't supposed to talk to guests, especially not the daughter of the richest man in the city, but something in her loneliness mirrored his own. He walked closer and waved. Amelia turned, studied his face, and smiled faintly. She couldn't hear him, but she could read lips. "You okay?" he asked slowly. She shook her head. With hesitant movements, she signed, "I can't hear, everyone laughs, I don't know why." Elijah wasn't fluent in sign language, but Amelia's lips moved enough for him to understand. Something tugged inside his chest. He sat across from her, setting his trash bag aside. "My grandma says sometimes broken things aren't really broken. They're waiting for a miracle." Amelia tilted her head, curious. His words weren't reaching her ears, but she could feel the kindness in his eyes. For the first time that night, she didn't feel invisible. On instinct, Elijah reached forward. "Can I?" he mouthed, pointing gently at her ears. She hesitated. No doctor, no specialist had ever changed anything, but his expression was different, not pity, not greed, just genuine care. Slowly, she nodded. He placed his warm hand softly around her ears. For a moment, nothing happened. He closed his eyes, silently praying, though he wasn't sure to whom. His grandmother always told him, "When your heart is pure, your touch carries power." Then something impossible happened. A faint ringing pierced Amelia's silence. Her eyes widened. She gasped because she heard her own gasp. The fountain behind her splashed and the leaves rustled in the wind. Sound, real sound. Her stuffed bunny dropped to the ground as tears streamed down her face. I can hear," she stammered. Her own voice sounded strange and shaky, but it was there, alive. Elijah's eyes widened, his heart thundering. He hadn't expected anything, but the look on her face told him the impossible had unfolded before them both. "Say something," she begged. He swallowed hard. "Hi." Her hands shot to her mouth. It was the first word she had ever heard in her life. "Hi," she whispered back, trembling with awe. The two children sat there, laughter and tears spilling together, until Richard Ward, frantic after noticing his daughter missing, rushed into the garden. "Amelia," he called. For the first time ever, she turned toward his voice. "Daddy," she whispered. Richard froze, the world tilted beneath him. What did you say?" "I heard you," Amelia sobbed. "I can hear you, Daddy." She ran into his arms, and for the first time in 12 years, Richard wept openly, holding his little girl who had finally crossed the silence that had imprisoned her. It didn't take long for him to notice Elijah standing back, nervous, unsure if he'd be blamed or punished. "You? How?" Richard demanded, still holding his daughter. Elijah lowered his gaze. "I don't know, sir. She was sad. I just touched her ears." Richard stared at him in disbelief. He had paid millions for surgeries, therapies, endless treatments, but here was a boy from the poorest streets who had given his daughter the miracle no fortune could buy. For a moment, pride threatened his humility, but when he looked at Amelia's glowing face, all that remained was gratitude. "Son," Richard said, his voice breaking, "you gave me back my child. You gave her the world." Elijah shrugged shyly. "I didn't do anything special." Amelia tugged her father's sleeve and pointed to Elijah. "He's my friend." From that night on, their lives intertwined. Richard ensured Elijah and his grandmother were moved out of their crumbling apartment into a safe home. He arranged for Elijah's education, but never treated him as a charity case. Instead, he respected him, recognizing that the boy had something beyond money's reach, a gift that could change lives. But not everyone believed. Some doctors called it coincidence, others dismissed it as impossible. Reporters swarmed, skeptics argued, but Amelia didn't care. Every morning she woke to birds singing outside her window, to her father's soft voice saying, "Good morning, sweetheart," to the melody of music she had only seen before in silent motions. To her, the truth was undeniable. And Elijah, though overwhelmed by the attention, never forgot his grandmother's words. He began helping others quietly, using his touch not as a spectacle but as an offering of hope. For some, it was only comfort. For others, like Amelia, it was transformation. Years later, Amelia stood on a stage, her father in the front row, Elijah beside her as she gave a speech to thousands. Her voice, once locked away, carried strong and clear. "I was born in silence," she told them, her eyes shining. "Doctors said I'd never hear, but a boy with nothing gave me everything. He gave me sound, yes, but more than that, he gave me the truth. Miracles don't care about money, status, or color. They find us through love." The audience rose to their feet, moved to tears. Richard wiped his eyes, remembering the night his world shifted. Elijah stood humbly at her side, never seeking credit, knowing that the miracle had never been his alone. It was love answering the longing of a little girl's heart. And as Amelia finished her speech, she looked at him and whispered the first words she had ever truly cherished. "Hi." The same word that had unlocked her new world. Elijah smiled back, "Hi." In that simple exchange, the lesson rang louder than any orchestra, brighter than any chandelier. Miracles are not born from wealth, but from compassion, and sometimes from the hands of those the world least expects.